joining us here in studio. In fact, he was the number 16 Montana kid for the San Francisco 49ers before Joe Montana. Before we get a chance to talk with this Montana great, Paul Champlin, let's first talk with Rick Halmes, who's helping to organize this whole Montana Football Hall of Fame banquet. Rick, great to see you again.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for inviting us up this morning. A big weekend coming up. Starts tonight with that VIP reception Morgan Stanley puts on. And so all the inductees, past and current, will be there along with some of the advertisers and supporters.
Yeah, so we're talking about, Montana football greats that have played, across the state. Cats, Grizz, Eastern Montana College back in the day.
We just found out that every college in Montana, Frontier and Big Sky, because somehow we'd lost it through the cracks, but Bob Lanning played for Northern Montana College in the middle 60s, and he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1968.
Yeah, well, I mentioned we've got one of the great inductees to the Montana Football Hall of Fame banquet. He came all the way back from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to be here for this event. Paul Champlin played 1965 to 1968, Eastern Montana College. Mr. Champlin, an honor to have you here in studio with us. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice being here.
What's it like being back in Montana? Bringing back some memories already?
Yeah, good memories. Good memories, yeah. It also reminds me of the difference between Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, big metropolitan area, comparing that to wide open spaces out here in Billings.
Yeah. I know you still watch a lot of hockey back there, sounds like, in Pittsburgh. So you played at Eastern Montana College 1965 to 1968.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning that Rick Halmes was telling us you were number 16. You played all your years at the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's at 1961. So you played for the 49ers, yeah. But you were number 16 from Montana before Joe Montana was number 16 at San Francisco, yeah. Right. What was it like back in the day playing football?
Professional?
Yeah, both college, yeah, either way.
Well, it was a little bit different than today's game, in that you were allowed to hit that quarterback, whereas now they protect the quarterback and the wide receiver. That's why you see so many. All the statistics have risen because the quarterback has much more time, and the wide receivers aren't allowed to get hit beyond 5 yards down. So it leads for a lot of yards to be gained.
Now, Rick was telling us, too, you kind of were kind of leading the charge back in the day. In fact, points about how you broke the color barrier, one of the first black quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, I was one of them.
Yeah.
I had always heard when I was coming up that anyone that played black quarterback, as you headed towards the professional ranks, you better probably get ready to play defensive back or wide receiver. But they didn't think that we had the intelligence to carry not only quarterback but middle linebacker.
What was it like in the 60s, being young and black and living in Montana?
Oh, he's got to tell you about his mother's story here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah. Rick likes that. But anyways, when I was considering to make a decision on whether I was going to accept a scholarship to Billings, my mom called me to the dinner table, and she said, "Sit down here." And I said, "Okay, what do you want?" And she says, "You call that coach, and you tell him to send you a brochure on the whole college, and then we'll sit down and discuss it." So Coach Lee sends me the brochure, and I give it to her, and I go to school. I come home. She says, "Come on down here, Paul." Sit down at the table, and she says, "I looked at every page. I combed that." She said, "I did not see one black person in that whole book." She said, "Do you know what you're getting into?" And I said, "Mom, I'm not going out there for that. I'm going out there to increase my potential to make my dream, which is to go play professional football and to get further educated." So she said it sounded good, and it turned out that way. I got at least an opportunity to play professional football, and I got educated.
That kind of reminds me of when I showed up at Howard University checking in the dorm on the first day in Washington, D.C., and they looked at me with blonde hair, and they're like, did you think this was Harvard? Or, no, just here to check into the dorm. And they're like, really? All right. Well, here you go.
About the same thing.
Yeah. So who are you? I know, this is going to be kind of like a family reunion for a lot of the football greats going back decades. Some of the younger guys I think Dan Carpenter, who kicked for the Grizz and then went pro for, with the Bills and with the Dolphins. The younger guys are going to be back too. Some of the old timers are going to be back. Who are you looking forward most to running into?
I would like to meet John Stenerud, the place kicker that went to Bozeman and played for the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting him.
Yeah, how come?
Just from reading Sports Illustrated, and he was up there with Dennis Erickson, and we were all the same age bracket.
Yeah. Rick Halmes, what to you stands out? Because you put together a great program. I wish I could share this whole thing with our listeners of past inductees, the current inductees here into the Montana Football Hall of Fame. What stood out to you most about Mr. Champlin, Paul Champlin's story here? I know you're an old Eastern Montana college guy too. Now they call it MSU Billings, but some folks want to see that name changed back to Eastern Montana College. Yeah,
there's two of them.
Two votes, yeah, three. My mom went there back in the day too, so I'd like to see it called that myself. But
well, I have a personal observation because I was a freshman, just a pimple-faced, big-eyed freshman. Goggle when I came to Eastern in 1967. Then I ended up being Paul's center for his junior and senior years. And from the first day in the huddle and looking into his eyes, he was in charge. He was focused. He just was a great role model and a great leader. And he did some things on the football field that I'd never seen done before. I mean, frankly, we had this thing called an all hook, and if we needed 15 yards, being a little bit of a student of football out of high school, I thought, well, how are you going to do an all hook and make all your reads and still make the throw? When I saw Paul throw something like how very few people could catch because it was like a rocket, and that's the kind of skills Paul had, I thought, oh, now I know why he called that play, because he could execute it.
What are some of your greatest memories from back in the day, Paul, playing in Montana?
Well, that last year we were up for playing at Kearney, Nebraska. We had played them all 4 years that I was here, down at Kearney, and they beat us all through the first three. And so myself and the other guys that had went through losing those 3 seasons, we made up our mind they were coming up here, and we were going to show them who was the boss. And that was a big victory for us, and because we beat them 41-14 or something like that.
Pretty close.
Pretty much jumped on them. But that and just realizing that the professional people were looking at me, I was happy about that.
Yeah. Rick Halmes, what else to you stands out about Paul Champlin's story and from his induction? There's a great write-up here in your program for him and the other inductees here too. But I imagine for you, this is kind of just like old home week more than anything else, getting all your old friends back together, both old and new.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because in Paul's case, there's a whole bunch of our old teammates and football fans of that era that are coming here that have bought tickets to the banquet. There's so many that we realized tomorrow night they couldn't see each other in an hour. So we're having a special reception for Paul with his friends, family, and teammates out at the hotel tomorrow, out at the Billings Hotel, from 1 to 3. So that just got thrown in because he's attracted so many friends coming back. He was respected that much. But I will say this, Mercury Morris was one of his best friends who played with the 72 undefeated Dolphins and, was in NFL history. And Dennis Erickson was one of his best friends, too, who was a quarterback. Well, these two had made a pact in Pittsburgh that they were going to go to the same college together. So he was either going to West Texas with Merck, or Merck was coming to Eastern Montana College. And think about that, Montana, in football lore. Yeah. But they kind of split up in different ways. But while Paul was beating Kearney that day, Merck was setting a rushing record in Bozeman the same afternoon, the same hour against the Montana State Bobcats.
Oh wow! Well, we kind of asked Paul Champlin about what it was like in the '60s because I'm an '80s kid, and nowadays, hey, black, white, same team, nobody even thinks twice about it. But so to look back on the '60s, you were sharing that great story about your mom. Hey, there's no white kids in this brochure. You sure you want to go to Montana?
That was the real deal.
Yeah. But Rick Halmes, from your standpoint, being a teammate, being a Montana kid on the team, what was it like for the teammates at that time? Was it a big deal? What was it like?
Well, obviously, race to me, being from Little Belt, Montana, wasn't a big deal.
You just never think about it.
You never even think about it.
Yep.
When I got there, I realized there was kind of an issue. But honestly, the 2 years that I played with Paul, we had one incident with a linebacker from one of the other schools that I won't mention, and got a little bit in Paul's face about race. And we took care of that.
Well, Rick and several of the linemen would always come up to me and say, if any of them give you a problem, just let me know.
That's great.
Right?
So you had the line ready, not just to defend the football and defend the quarterback, but also to defend some great American principles at the same time, too. That's great.
Aaron, I'll add this to Dennis Erickson, who most Montana football fans know who that is doing a 40-second tribute to Paul and an address. And Paul and Dennis, God bless him, he mentions in this that the folks are going to see tomorrow night. Paul, you're part of history because you helped break that ceiling of black quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's great. That's incredible. It's such an honor to have both of you here in studio with us, and your son here, by the way, too. He's still living in Montana, so that's great that the family lives on in Montana.